This episode is brought to you by Mortgage Workflow Partners and the Mastering Encompass series, both for users as well as administrators. You can find out all the information about it over at masteringencompass.com. Also, if you'd like to check out what we're doing on YouTube, go ahead and subscribe to the channel using the @MasteringEncompass handle. And make sure you stay up to date on all the information, not just with podcasts, but also video content that we bring to you as often as possible. Now let's get on to the episode. Howdy, everybody. Larry Bailey, Awesome Technologies, Inc. See if I was going to slip on mortgage. I'm still Mortgage Workflow Partners. I mean, Mortgage Workflow Partners is an ongoing enterprise. It didn't disappear. It actually is focused in on training ATI in the house. Yeah, so it was a really wild story. If you're interested, I'll be glad to share it with you personally. But Awesome Technologies and I, Noor Panjwani, who is the major shareholder of ATI, he and I have been around each other for a long, long time. As a matter of fact, when I joined Kenzie May back in 2017, he called me. He's like, "Why did you join Kenzie May? Why didn't you join ATI?" And I'm like, "I don't know, because we didn't talk." And so we've talked ever since. And it's really a cool thing. So thank you very much for saying that, Chris. I appreciate it. So listen, today's 4:00 on the 12th, which is Tuesday in December, and that means we're meeting as a community. So thanks everybody for showing up. I still have my decorations. I still have to put the Star Trek ornaments up there. I promise it's worth the wait. Today's conversation is all about best practices of condition management settings in English. I don't know why I said it like that, but basically managing your conditions in Encompass and what that looks like. I know, Katie, I suck for not putting those decorations up sooner. I don't know how your December's been going. My December's been kind of weird and wild. A lot of crazy stuff happening. And I know a lot of friends who are going through a lot of stuff out there right now. Just professionally speaking, I know a bunch of folks got laid off earlier this month. There's been a lot of mergers happening. Katie's like, "Yeah, I have no idea." I'm telling you, it's like the universe is like saying, "Okay, people, human beings, like, here it comes, get ready." So what are we going to do about it? We're going to talk about conditions. Isn't that constructive? But I do want to talk about conditions today. And so the topic, if anybody wants to come up on stage, feel free, raise your hand, put it in chat. If you have any questions for yourself, I am going to share a story with you that is going to be very, very hard to believe, but it's an honest to God true story, and it's about managing conditions and not managing conditions. And so I'm going to start the conversation off like this. When it comes to Encompass, it's just a piece of software, right? It's how are you using the software to run your business, and how are you making sure that the quality of your loan files are exactly where it needs to be. And then taking that concept of quality and putting that into different parts of your organization can be interpreted by like a task list. We use a ton of business rules in Encompass, making sure that things happen the way they're supposed to be. And then also, of course, we deal with these idea of conditions. Now, for 20 years, we've had three main kinds of conditions, right? We've had preliminary conditions, which is pre-underwriting. We've had underwriting conditions, which can be prior to approval, prior to docs, prior to funding, prior to purchase, prior to closing, if you use prior to closing instead of prior to docs. And then we have post-closing. And one of the things that I've been teaching strongly about all year is enhanced conditions, because you can now build limitless kinds of condition types. And so having all of these tools at your fingertips as administrators can be really tempting to like, "Oh, I want to do all this stuff." But the reality is you have to get your business to you have to play Inception, right? You have to show them what's possible, knowing what you want them to do, but you have to make it so that it's operations idea, right? And if anybody's an underwriter on here, tell me I'm wrong. Or if anybody's a manager, tell me I'm wrong. I'll be glad to debate it with you, because when I go through workflow reviews, and we're going to be doing a ton more workflow reviews in 2024 because we've got a lot more access to folks, and you're going to want to know what your workflow is as you migrate to the web. It's a whole part of our journey to the web. So a couple of things here. First of all, if you're not joined in the journey to the web space inside mortgage.community, join. If you're listening to this on podcast or on replay, you're going to get cut off here in a second. Make sure you get over to mortgage.community to see the whole thing, because you're going to want to know all the stuff we're going to talk about with condition management settings and concepts and ideas and things that I see companies missing opportunities on. And so we're going to talk about that as well. So there's your cut, Anna, who does our marketing. So let's talk about the idea of managing the conditions first of all. Yes, Brian, that is why our YouTube videos are only 6 minutes long, because I do that cut to get people to the community. Because for those that don't know, like one of the big things I did was workflowology. Like if you've ever followed my stuff online, it's workflowology. I'm actually trademarking that. Friggin' YouTube didn't like what I was doing on videos, and they forever killed workflowology as a channel. It took me a couple of weeks to kind of get over it. I'm still not obviously over it, but that's the reason why I will only put so much on socials, because the algorithms control I'm being really weird right now, but in other words, I don't want to have algorithms control what information you can get to. If you want to search for something, I want you to be able to find it. And I want to be able to replace it too. This is true story. This is like 5 years ago. I had people telling me that they were watching my YouTube videos from 2012. I just can't have that. So, because it was like version 8. And at that time we were on version 18. So back to topic. How many conditions do you have? Raise your hand. I'm going to say the average number of conditions that you guys have is probably somewhere around 400. Too many? No, like legit, like 300, 400, 500. The least amount I've seen recently was probably like 250. Reed 664. Thanks, Reed, for being sincere. 521, Luba. 246, Kevin. I think Kevin might be a winner. That's a good 298. Alaris only had maybe 100. So that's wild. Candace, I got to ask, they must have been manually typing these things out quite a bit. And the reason why I'm asking about managing conditions is because look at the community here. It's definitely not like bowling or golf. And there's a balance, because Reed's operations might be really smooth, because Reed might be in a position to automate the conditions with enhanced conditions using workflow engine. Because if you've got numbers, I'm going to tell you the story about what happened to me on last week on a client call. Holy God, 1337. Okay, so underwriters aren't allowed to hand type them. So this is going to lead into exactly what I'm leading into. So Kirsten, thank you. So the idea is, if you want to automate your conditions, you have two choices. You can either make them unique, which is what Kirsten's company's done, or you free type a lot, which is what Alaris is probably doing. Brian, I guess your company does too. You have to hand type a lot. And this is really important, because if you have a list of conditions and there's no sequencing to them, there's no numbering to them, it's impossible. And so I'm going to share a screen here, and I want to show you something that's really important to talk about and to plan about for 2024. Check this out. So we know that, what's the chat say? We'll change that in the spring. So we know in the eFolder setup, we know conditions. This is what everybody looks like, right? Now, I've only got 79 because I'm not real. But we put them out and we put a name and a description. Gang, thank goodness ICE has changed it. So now you can actually have an enhanced conditions. You can actually have codes, right? So internal ID, external ID, and then your name, which has nothing to do with your descriptions. This is one of the first things that you need to do. So if you don't have the export settings tool to export all your conditions out into an Excel spreadsheet, let me know. I'll send it to you directly. It's just a button. It's just button code that you can put into your whatever input form you want. But when you look at your conditions, I feel like I'm losing my voice, so I'm sorry. But when you look at your conditions, The way that you need to manage them is how your teams are using them. So in other words, just because of how many you have doesn't necessarily mean there's a problem. What's important is look at your output. So when you go into your eFolder, what I want you to pay attention to is pick 10 random files that just closed last month and go into that file and go into the conditions tab. And what I want you to pay attention to, again, this is standard conditions, right? What I want you to pay attention to is the creator. So in other words, the source. So if we go through and hit close, source in here says manual. Now, if you're using third-party tech to create these, the source probably is going to say set. It depends on how the tech is doing it. So if you come in here and you create it from here and click add, it's going to say set. If you come in here and create automated, I don't have automated. Oh yeah, I do. I lied. It'll say automated. So if you're paying attention here to what your teams are doing, you can figure out how you can plan next year, in Brian's case in the spring. Because if you're doing manual, you can't go automated. If you're doing sets, that's good, but are they manually updating the description after that? And if you're doing automated conditions, phenomenal, but again, same question, are they automated? So Brian says most are condition sets 3 manual. So then, Brian, do you know if they're manually updating the description because the name is preset? And this kind of gets back into probably what Kirsten's dealing with is they don't allow them to modify anything in here. Kirsten, keep me honest. Are you only allowed to? You're not allowing your underwriters to update the description or the name, correct? So, a lot of folks are going to be using this situation. They can update the conditions after they're pulled in. So that's probably why you're dealing with a cleanup. What I want you to do, just not freehanding a whole new one. That's totally fine. What I want you to think about for best practices is moving into 2024 is getting ready for enhanced, specifically because you've got the condition types. And I did a whole thing on in conditions, so I'm not going to regurgitate that today. But I do want you to pay attention to how you're managing when the conditions are being applied. And the reason why I've got that on my mind is because I want you to come into your web version settings, and I want you to think about the creation of an enhanced condition that is no longer just about underwriting. So in your process automation, one of the things that you can do if you're using enhanced conditions is make sure your result is applying an enhanced condition. Where am I? Right here. You can update the tracking status if you want, like if a condition's been fulfilled or received or cleared or waived. But the big thing is applying the enhanced condition. And so when you do that, you can either apply the manual conditions here, right? If you got that, or if you've built the enhanced condition business rules in the Encompass desktop version, it'll automatically add those conditions to the eFolder. No more creating an automated set that the underwriter can pick and choose from. This is literally adding the condition into the eFolder for them. They can't stop it, which is a beautiful thing when it comes to making sure that your underwriters are doing conditions properly, in my opinion, best practice. Robert asks, can we map a field ID in the enhanced condition? Not at this time. I don't remember seeing that on there. And I've got a question for you about that. And I'm going to bring up the Kenzie May tool because I worked with it for 4 years. And as far as I know, it hasn't changed. And I know it's out there. A lot of people use it. A lot of people have a lot of success with it. So that's great. Where I see it falls down, the condition gets added with the value in the field at the time that it gets added. Because it's a text field, it doesn't update when that field updates. Tell me if I'm wrong. Tell me if I'm out of touch with how the tool works today. Luba says there is a way around that. Luba, are you reapplying the condition again to get the updated value into the field? Yeah. And so the problem with that is if your underwriter manually makes an update and you re-trigger the same condition because you want to re-trigger the field update, you wipe out everything that they've updated in the field. I know these tricks. I kind of help build some of these tricks. So when it comes into condition management, I want, my guidance for you is, if you're using standard, which everybody pretty much is, unless I helped implement you this year, you need to work on this. I'm going to call you out, Kayla, if you don't mind. You can just use chat. Kayla is a company that came on with enhanced conditions to start. She was brave enough to believe in me and to get that thing delivered. How are you guys doing with your enhanced conditions so far? I wonder if you don't mind giving the community any feedback. Somebody else who's on the call, possibly. No, she's not. Another one that's in the community is Beth Bastian. She just went live. She's a non-retail TPO lender and also launched on enhanced conditions. Her comment was she'd never go back to anything else, and she's been an Encompass user. So I definitely want you to think about that. Let me tell you the story while we're waiting for Kayla's update. So Kayla says, I've only gotten good feedback from the underwriters. There was a time where for some reason they weren't printing. That was because ICE had it broken, but they fixed it. So the underwriters have been happy. And this is, again, part of the, again, I'm not going to regurgitate it, but part of the allure is working forward. And condition management in your Encompass is more than just underwriting. A lot of it has to do with post-closing. So if you're using Investor Connect, and as we migrate everybody towards Encompass Partner Connect, the idea is your investor conditions will finally automatically get into Encompass, and you'll be able to see if there are post-closing investor conditions if you're using Enhanced. You won't be able to do that if you're not using Enhanced, is the guidance that we've been given as partners. So let me tell you the story, and you're all going to say that, no way, that's not true, and I'm going to tell you it is true. So there was a company I worked with, I'm working with them on some just consulting work, and they let me know that their workflow is the borrower uploads documents and the processor puts the documents into the file manager unassigned, right? Not totally unusual, seen it a million times. The documents down here are empty until the underwriter actually drops the file into the document. And then when they do that, they go into the document to mark the document as received. They never associate the condition. Let that sink in. They don't associate the condition. When I said, how does everybody know the conditions are cleared? And they said, because they work on the document. So I know this sounds like far-fetched because you're probably never heard anything like that, like me, but I want to make sure that from a condition management perspective, everybody is going in and associating your documents with your conditions. In the condition itself, you associate the documents. When you move to enhanced conditions, you have the same, you have the same experience here. Now, if you use the admin tool document converter, which is at the bottom of the list in the admin tools, you don't have to do that. It will automatically be there. But in the case of like Kirsten, who's got 1,000 whatever conditions, and you're trying to unwind that, part of what you're going to have to deal with is reassociating the document correctly with the condition correctly. So having said that, I really want to make sure that from a best practice perspective, I share this concept with you, which is to say, whether it's retail or non-retail, is there anybody not using a fulfilled workflow for your underwriters? Meaning, if your processor or your account manager or your TPO, if you're loading directly from TPO Connect into the condition, are you marking the condition as fulfilled to let your underwriter make a decision? Or are you doing something different? I'm curious to hear from you on that. What I've always found is that the fulfilled methodology is best practice because this is a number count on the pipeline view. So if you don't have this in your reporting database, you can add the fulfilled count to your pipeline view. so that your underwriters and your processors and your third parties can actually see how many conditions are fulfilled, ready to be reviewed. And of course, when the underwriter goes in, they can go into the loan file and they can go into the eFolder. They can sort by status, so they can just look for fulfilled, and they can see which conditions they're being asked to work on. If something works and they can clear it, great. If it doesn't work, they can remove fulfilled, so now it's back to added, so that resets the clock. So I'm curious to see if anybody's actually doing that or not doing it, because again, from a workflow perspective, that is absolutely best practice. I don't know any other way to do it, especially as things are getting close to end of month. If we're looking at the month, right, and you've got 10 conditions, I want to make sure those conditions are fulfilled, this time next week, making sure of that. So Luba says not using fulfilled as far as I know. I think the underwriters just use cleared or waived. So Luba, how does the underwriter know which condition to work on? So that would be the question. So Robert says, I hope so, but ops and underwriting have been kind of doing their own thing. I'll have to rope them back in. All of them? No. So if I've got 13 conditions on here, how does the processor tell the underwriter which condition the processor wants them to review? That would be my question for you, Luba. Reed says, we used to do that until we started moving AIQ. Now we might be moving back to workflow. Yeah, Reed, thank you for bringing up AIQ. So for those that don't know, AIQ is it's basically OCR and data into Encompass. It's baked into Encompass. Love it, don't love it, Reed. My word recently is everybody's thumbs up on AIQ. What's if you don't mind going on the record, let me know what you think. Luba says in a comment, or I think they really look at it. Hey, Luba, go back through this, and if you have any questions in the community, ask. Definitely explore using the fulfilled in condition management. So yeah, definitely explore it. Sean says, Larry, that's why we use it, so the underwriter knows that's all they'll be reviewing. And if you're doing TPO, think about everybody else who's looking at the file who doesn't really understand how mortgages work. But you can explain to anybody, hey, I got your conditions. I think they're going to work, so I'm fulfilling the condition, but the underwriter is going to make the final determination. That's the best practice. And Reed says regarding AIQ, Reed likes it, but it's still hard for the users. And is it, Reed, for you, is it the stuff that falls out and they have to go kind of reassociate it in the document in the file that wasn't successful? Is that the AIQ hard part? So anyway, back to what keep us on track here. So in condition management, the next thing that comes up is post-closing. So in post-closing, this post-closing conditions tab absolutely is horrible for 2023. It might have worked a long time ago when we were using paper files. Does not work today. As a matter of fact, there's been plenty of solutions that have been created out there for lists to carry over. And again, this is another reason why I'm really focusing on everybody to use enhanced conditions, because you can create your own condition type. And if you're dealing with a particular investor, you can actually use that investor and you can start to load investors' conditions in here. It's an unusual way because you've never had the option. But you can create obviously standard post-closing. But if you know you're going to be getting a certain condition from a certain investor, and it's always the same, rather than copy paste, just create your own condition type for that investor and just pick them as you go through to create them. You can create sets of them and obviously specific to the condition types. And then as they come in, you can make sure that the tracking option for that condition type is specific. So if you want to have a tracking option for the condition like sent to investor, that's a cool tracking type. One of the things I just want to reinforce here is even enhanced conditions fulfilled is there. And the reason why it's there is because it's a best practice. You don't have to have rejected or even cleared. Maybe you call it something different, but you do have to have requested, re-requested, and fulfilled. Luba asks, how does reporting work with enhanced conditions? Can you do an analysis of the post-close conditions of what you're getting the condition for the most? So when you come over into the eFolder with conditions, what you can do in terms of reporting is, again, and I don't have enhanced loaded in here, but these are all of the types of columns that could be reported on. The challenge is going to be in the reporting database, Luba, because in the reporting database, there's still only very specific ones. And even when you get over into custom print form management, there's a whole thing. I don't know if you remember me talking about it, but in the custom print forms, when you get into field assignments, you've got the options in here for enhanced condition by options. And so this is where you can get into category options or prior tos or tracking options. Notice what's not here is type. So I don't think it's going to accomplish what you're looking for. But one of the things that you can do in there is in your testing environment, enable enhanced conditions and try a couple of ideas and see if you can find what works for you. But I don't know if you're going to get what you're looking for necessarily from the type. Right, but not on all loans. No, because if keep in mind that if you implement enhanced conditions, it's only on those loans moving forward. So your existing pipeline won't have that, but like in anything, there's always a burn-in rate. You always have a certain time where certain loans will have it and certain loans won't. So the last thing I was going to bring up in condition management in terms of best practices for this also has to do with making sure that you're maintaining these. One of the things that you can do in enhanced that you can't do, and Kirsten is probably looking at this over and over again, but in standard conditions, you either have them or you don't, right? There's 79. And if you remove it, then it's gone forever out of the table. And with enhanced conditions, you activate or you deactivate. Different paradigm, right? So now I can have 1,000 conditions, but currently we only have 100 active. Why is that important? Well, because programs come and go. That's really the best example. Yeah, it's extraordinarily useful. So to get here, today's topic was all about concepts. Fulfilled was a big concept that I wanted to make sure I shared. I want to reinforce enhanced conditions. I think the opportunity to leverage workflow to automate, like truly automate your conditions in here in your workflow rules. So definitely make sure you at least explore this idea, because not only are you talking about applying the enhanced conditions by the business rule or by individuals, but then you can also, another result is you can also update the enhanced. So let's say it goes from FHA to VA. That's probably a bad example, but conventional to FHA, and you had a condition on there for like private mortgage insurance. Well, now you can waive that and you can add the FHA conditions in without causing total chaos. Robert asks, question, is it recommended to only have the admin have access to write the conditions? Right now, the underwriting manager wanted access. I think it's a personal question, Robert. I personally like the idea of somebody else being responsible. I love delegation. So if I can go into the persona and I can give a persona the ability to manage their own part of their work, yeah, I think that's a good thing. Just like I am always telling people, delegate the itemization fee management to somebody who's responsible for it, because I don't want to have to deal with that. I shouldn't be in the middle. So yeah, I'm okay with that, Robert. Totally normal, but keep in mind they have responsibility. So yeah, I mean, look at everybody else: Iluba, Katie, Reed, Kevin. Yeah, they would know how it's worded and they're responsible. And let's say a new program comes in. Yeah, totally. Thanks for the question, Robert. Yeah, it's definitely a real thing. Anybody have any questions? Less tickets for Katie. Now, I will say this, Luba, Katie, Reed, Kevin, do you require your underwriting manager to document what they changed in a change management log? How about that? Do you make them do that? No. Oh, but everybody else wants you to document everything you change, right? Kirsten says, I would set the naming convention, though. We have had many people do whatever they felt like. Yeah, this is the hard part, because if you have other automation built or other whatever built on the names of the conditions, or they're not spell checking, it's sloppy and it's bad. So yeah, I'm okay with Kirsten's perspective. Katie says we set rules. If they don't fit the requirements, we have them made. So you do like an audit, Katie, like every month or whatever. You do like an export and an audit. So Katie's typing. If you're doing that kind of a thing, I kind of poked fun there. People who make changes in settings but don't document this settings changes. And then in like 2 years, when a loan gets bought back, everybody's like, well, who made that change? Remember in the settings or system admin tool in the system audit trail. So remember in the categories, there's no category in here for conditions. So if Chris's team, they document everything, which is awesome. Katie's doing periodic access. Like I said earlier, if you don't have the input form button code to export your conditions, let me know. I'll send it to you. It's easy code. I'm assuming it's out there. So we'll just get it to you. That's it. 30 minutes. Hopefully you learned something new today for condition management. I look forward to seeing the conversation continue. For those that are going to or planning on going to ICE in March of next year, make sure you use the discount code somewhere in the community. If you need it, let me know. We'll be at booth 520 at Awesome Technologies, Inc. You got the free mint on the ATI. You're wild, Chris. You're welcome, Candace. Everybody go hire Candace. Anyway, everybody have a great rest of your day. Is there info about the after event in the community? Yeah, basically it's just RSVP, John. If you know you're going to be staying the day after for the wrap-up event, just RSVP to it. I'm planning on about 20 right now. I'm still getting the location secured, but we're definitely having it. I'll be there. It'll be Thursday, the day after, and it'll be like 10 a.m. to like 3 p.m. Enough to get everybody out of the hotel into a place to comfortably talk. And we're also going to be doing like a little funny worksheet as you go along to be like things to fill out during the conference, so that way you have a good thing to refer back to for the wrap-up event. So more to come on that. It'll be cool. You got it, John. Everybody have a great rest of your day. See you now. Bye-bye. Thanks for coming. Ciao.